first. Hello, friends. It is July 1st, 2021, and welcome to another episode of the Nuts and Bolts MMA, where you get the nuts and bolts of what's going on inside the world of MMA. I am your host, Travis Montgomery. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be doing a recap of UFC Vegas 30 and talking some crazy news headlines that are going on. It's been a kind of a news-filled week, and myself, I'm doing pretty good. I am a little tired, just a messed up sleep schedule, and I forgot all my vitamins at my spot in Bakersfield. But one thing I am happy about is this weekend I get my son, and I asked his mom for some extra time because I was going to bring him back at July 4th at 6:00, but she's letting me have him overnight. So we're going to stay in Orange County, hang out with his favorite cousin, Violet. So that's going to be good times. I'll be posting some pictures of that because those two are just too cute together. My niece's daughter, Violet, is just, she has so much of character and personality for a 4-year-old. It's kind of remarkable. But I am joined today by president of the Diaz fan club, Nikki B. How are you doing? And tell me how you're doing. I want to know, since you're on a podcast, you have to listen to some podcasts. So I want to know what podcast you listen to and if you have any plans for this 4th of July.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me as usual. I got to meet our vice president of the Diaz fan club during the week. Rob was in LA, so met up with him briefly and just, shot the shit.
Wow.
And in terms of podcasts that I listen to, I'll check out Rogan every now and then, depending on who the guest is. But mostly me and my girlfriend listen to like murder mystery podcasts. So that's probably our go-to. There's so many of them. The one that we're listening to right now is the 2nd season of To Live and Die in LA, which is like a missing persons case in Malibu. So always super interesting. And we also recently listened to season 2 of Dr. Death, which is about this, I think he was an Indian doctor who was just like pushing unnecessary cancer treatments on people that sometimes didn't even have cancer and expanding his practice. And it was horrible. But anyway, they're rolling that into a TV show. So we're going to the premiere of the first episode plus like a live taping. I think it's next Thursday. So
cool. Right there. When you're in Hollywood, I've gone to the premiere of Jay and Silent Bob reboot a couple years ago. That was pretty cool. Yeah, right there in Hollywood, you get to see a lot of things like co-hosts from the show. That's crazy. I was driving down the 101 on Monday morning really early, and I was thinking about you because I had to, the maps took me for some reason the 140 to the 101 back to the 5 or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, hey, I'm in Nikki B's neck of the woods right now. Fireworks legal for you? Are you able to use them?
I don't use them. My dog hates them, so it's not something I personally do. Plus, I live in like a townhouse style building, so it's not like I have a yard to shoot the stuff off in. But I mean, it's North Hollywood, so basically from the week before Memorial Day till New Year's is fireworks season in North Hollywood.
Yeah, right around 8:00. It's just everywhere you go now. I think in Southern California, and for some reason last year seemed to be way worse than other years during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And also on a side note, shout out to the LAPD for detonating a truck full of explosives there in South Central. Did you hear about that?
I did not hear about that.
Oh my gosh. So they found tons and tons and tons of illegal fireworks. I guess legal, illegal is up for interpretation depending on what state you go to. So they're trying to dispose of these things, and they do them by packing them in a truck and detonating them inside the truck. Well, something went wrong because the whole truck blew up, and did it in the middle of a neighborhood, and 17 people got injured. Bunch of property damage. Yeah. So good job, LAPD, for, just
That's a
taking,
lawsuit.
yeah, that's a couple of them.
Uh-huh.
So that's fun. So happy 4th of July to everyone out there. Next week, we might be doing two episodes, but for now, let's get into the UFC Vegas 30 breakdown. UFC Vegas 30 took place at the Apex Center, headlined by Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. There was no attendance involved. Cyril Gane takes a unanimous decision. I was not, he did not wow me like I thought he would in this spot. Turns out maybe he just doesn't have the kind of power that puts people away at heavyweight in devastating fashion like a Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou. But he is still, one of the best in the world at heavyweight. So, Nikki B, what did you think about how this fight went down?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I wasn't impressed, right? Like I wasn't wowed, like, oh my God, this guy is so amazing. But I was super impressed with his approach to fighting Volkov because I picked Volkov, and I figured like his experience in the octagon and just in the sport in general was kind of gonna just give him a little bit of an edge. And I think in the first round of that fight was the fight I expected to see the most, where Volkov outstruck him. He invested a lot with that teep front kick to the body. He started going after the lead leg of Gane. And as the fight progressed from there, I'd say probably by round 3, Gane just had control of the fight. Like he started switching stances. He started really getting behind his jab, which, you pointed out he was going to utilize his jab really well, and he did. And he just started like diversifying his attack to the point where he never let Volkov get comfortable after the first round. And once he got ahead, like similar to what we saw with Jairzinho, where he played it, I don't know, maybe a little bit safe, but it's heavyweight, so these guys can put each other away. And Volkov got his licks in, so I think we saw Gane take some good shots and still keep the pressure on. And he was the guy who was mostly moving forward the whole fight and putting Volkov against the fence. And I think that says a lot against a much bigger guy where it was hard to hit him in the face. He was able to dictate the range, which really nobody does against Volkov.
Yeah, Volkov has a really good jab too, and that's apparent. It just like you said, the switching of the stances and the crazy movement. I mean, if you were to like map out the amount of steps that he takes in the octagon, it's probably pretty crazy. It's like lightweight status or something.
Yeah, and I think Volkov, maybe expected like I'm going to dig his body, I'm going to go after the lead leg, and I'm going to slow him down so he can't move as much. And then those things really just didn't seem to work as well as maybe he had hoped. And by the 10-minute mark in the fight, Gane was really pacing and controlling the whole fight.
Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Pulling up some stats here. Total strikes landed for Gane was 139. He was pretty diverse from the head to the body to the legs. Volkov threw more leg kicks than he did anything else, which was 56. Four takedown attempts for Gane, and he didn't get any of them. So, he outstruck him. I think some people were even scored it for Volkov, and I guess some of those rounds were close, but it's fair. It was fair to say Gane won. I can't remember, but I think I gave Volkov one, maybe 2 rounds. One judge had it 49-46. The rest had it 50-45. Do you remember how you scored it?
Yeah, I think I had it 49-46 because the first round I was like, all right, Volkov basically outlanded him in what they term significant strikes. I think close to 2-1, maybe not quite, but it was double digits. And he was just fighting the kind of fight that he wanted to fight at that point. And then after that, it was all gone after that. And maybe Volkov sneaks in one more round if you're really a huge Volkov fan, maybe the fourth, because his corner told him, like, look, you got to go out there and win this round. But I still think Gane took 2 through 5. Well earned fight.
All right. Give me one more second. I got it. I didn't do the tally. That's I have to go back and look. I meant to do this before we started.
It's all right. Did you end up connecting your parlay to put that bet on Gane?
Yeah, I ended up doing it anyways.
Okay.
Where the fuck is it? Hold on real quick. Oh, because I placed it on Thursday. I'll do it before I give out the bets on for 264 because I don't want to waste too much time. Dude, these freaking bugs. All right. Moving on. Tanner Boser defeats Oven St. Preux. Round 2 KO punch. Tanner Boser seemed to just have his number. I'm not sure OSP needs to be fighting at heavyweight, but what did you see in this one?
I mean, there wasn't much to see, honestly. Like, it looked like OSP like rolled out of bed and got into the cage for this fight. Like the first round, he did almost nothing the entire first round, and Boser just kind of started to pick up his pace and his timing and his work rate. And then by the time round 2 rolled around, I think OSP got the takedown, wasn't able to really do much of anything with it. And then when Boser got back to his feet, he just wanted to make sure that that position was not going to happen again, and he went in for the kill. And like you said, OSP is fighting up, 30 pounds, probably, like at least 30 pounds to where he's at his best. And Boser is a fairly small heavyweight as well in comparison to some of the other heavyweights. So I don't know if OSP goes back down to light heavyweight or if it's time for him to stop, maybe, but he did not look good in that fight.
Yeah, he's been around since the Strikeforce days, and sometimes he comes out and he's head kicking Corey Anderson, or he's surviving 5 rounds with John Jones. That Corey Anderson fight wasn't that long ago, but he's definitely got miles on him. And yeah, he definitely shouldn't be fighting at heavyweight anymore. We've got one heavyweight coming back to light heavyweight, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Somebody who moved up and didn't work out so good for him. But Tanner Boser, he's a decent heavyweight at this point.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he needed to avenge the loss to Latifi. So he needed like a statement win, and he was still basically fully healthy. So he had fought, I don't know, not even a month ago, I think, before the OSP fight. So he was still like in good condition and ready to go.
It was 3 weeks at the most. Yeah, it was. I think it was the event before. No, it was two events before. So it wasn't that long, and he could use a top 15 opponent at this point.
Yeah, he went the distance with Gane when they fought. So he's got that at least to say like, hey, this guy who's gonna be fighting for the title, like he didn't finish me, and I was in there with him the whole time, and I'm a legit heavyweight. Give me somebody that's gonna move me upwards.
Yeah, that's why I like betting on Tanner Boser because I remember that fight in my head sticks out a lot. Is that how he was able to survive against Gunn, who was, clearly better than him? I'd say give him Blagoy Ivanov or Tom Aspinall, Walt Harris. That's 14.
I would like the Aspinall fight, honestly. I think Aspinall is a good prospect. He's shown us a lot in a short period of time. Boser just is a little bit more credentialed at this point. But I think because Aspinall's got the following and kind of the personality, it could be a pretty good heavyweight scrap with some attention on it.
Okay, moving on. We got Rony Barcelos versus Timur Valiev. Valiev takes this as a majority decision. One judge had it as a draw. I'm not sure what was going on here. Valiev was landing the stronger shots. He had a more diverse attack. What did you see? What was going on here? Had 6 takedown attempts, got 0. He seemed to be landing the cleaner shots. How did you score it?
I had Valiev winning 29-28, mostly because the second round I had him also winning up until the point where he got hurt. And yes, he got dropped twice and he almost got finished in that, last 90 seconds of the second round. But up until that point, I felt he was winning. So had Barcelos been winning the whole round up until that point where he hurt him, then I would be like, yeah, that's 10-8, and this is going to be a majority draw most likely. But I think Valiev, if you just look at the fight as a whole, he just outworked him. Like you said, his attack was more diverse. He was throwing the better variety of strikes. He was fighting the fight at his pace. And Barcelos, I think there was some exchanges in the first round where I could say that maybe he landed the better quality punches. But at the same time, like, how much does that matter when, like, you don't knock the guy down and the volume is significantly against you? So I think 29-28 was correct. I don't think it hurts Barcelos that much. Like, he still looked pretty good. He still had his moments. So I think they're both in like a similar upward trajectory, even after Barcelos takes the loss on that one.
Yeah, both of these guys are going to be around a while.
Yeah,
I think. And Valiev came in through as a underdog. So for anybody who cashed that check, they're very happy about that. The bantamweight division is so stacked that neither one of these guys are in the top 15 yet. And the number 15 is Kyler Phillips versus Cody Stamen. These two are probably sitting outside that right there. I'm not sure who has a fight yet, but let's just move on. Bantamweight's so exciting right now, and these guys will be in the top 15, I believe, maybe by the end of the year.
they'll probably both fight again. So I would think that they're both going to at least be on the bubble, if not in the top 15.
Yeah, I have no problem betting either one of these two. I mean, depending on who it is, especially might get him as a dog. So we'll see what happens. Andre Fili has a no contest against Daniel Pineda after having a lot of success. If you look at the raw numbers, the total strikes is similar, but the significant strikes is almost 2-1. It's actually more than 2-1 for Andre Fili. Was just putting it on him. Daniel Pineda, I mean, he was never out of the fight. He was always responding back. He is tough as shit. It's kind of unfortunate because this was about to be the biggest win of Andre Fili's career, and the eye poke was absolutely bad. That was a bad one. It's a fight-ending eye poke that happened. So I don't know, Nikki, what do you see?
You're right. Fili looked great. I mean, all the work that we've seen him putting in over the last 18 months or so, like, he looked really clean. His striking was solid. Pacing was excellent. Distance control was great. he had that one sequence where he hit him with like a 3-punch combo and then like tossed him on his head. And it's unfortunate, it's unfortunate for both guys for the fight to end that way. And like the hardest thing is that after the eye poke happened, I think it was Herb Dean that came in and called timeout. I might be wrong, but the ref calls time. He brings in the doctor. The doctor's checking the eye, and it's only been maybe like a minute. So we find out like through John Anik, or I forget who it was that was at the booth, communicating after the fight is over, that it's the referee's discretion whether or not an accidental foul actually results in 5 minutes. So Herb Dean can just call the fight early in that situation and just call it a no contest, when you have Daniel Pineda lobbying the doctor and the ref to let the fight continue. And he says he can see, even though they check his eye and it's like he can't see, but they didn't give him the full recovery time to actually be able to maybe get to the point where he can see. So it's just, it was just a really bad ending all around on an otherwise very good fight, and what would have been, like you said, a seminal win for Feely in that position.
It seemed like he was on his way. The sport's crazy. You never know. Daniel Pineda could have landed one of those haymakers and changed the fight completely, but you're right. They didn't give him the 5 minutes allowed to recover. Who knows? In another 4 minutes, his eyesight could have came back. They could have kept going, but that's not what happened. It was kind of a bizarre ending, not the way I wanted to see that fight go, especially since it was a part of the parlays. I'll do the tallies once I give out the next bets on 264. I ended up profiting on this one, but I'm going to go over the numbers right before 264.
Yeah, it just, with that fight, it's just, it's unfortunate because it ends the way it ends, like during a good fight. And then we get like a weird explanation of like how the rule works. Because in instances where there's other accidental fouls, like we saw the knee to the head of Aljamain Sterling, we saw like many nut shots over the years where they're encouraged to take the full 5 minutes. You never see the referee stepping in anywhere during a nut shot and being like, are your balls okay? Or should I like stop the fight and not give you the full 5 minutes? So it's just really weird that in this instance, the eye poke was so bad that the doctor suggested to the referee that like, we're going to just call it now and not allow however much time is remaining on the accidental foul clock. So a little clarity in the rule book would be nice regarding something like that moving forward.
True. And I believe it was Herb Dean too, right?
I think it was Herb Dean, but I don't want to, speak ill of him in case it was not, but I'm pretty sure it was him.
I'm pretty sure it was him, and he's the best that we have right now. So it was kind of weird for it to see that unfold the way that it did. Now, in our next bout, we have Tim Means defeating Nicholas Dalby 29-28 across the board, which was, this was a good fight to watch. It was entertaining. It was a little weird. Nicholas Dalby is a kind of a weird guy with all of his, I thought he was gassed at first for a second, but it's just, he's channeling his inner Wim Hof as he's fighting with his crazy breathing exercise that he was doing. He was kind of outmatched.
Yeah, Dirty Bird, man.
Yeah,
experience.
Just he was the right.
Edge it out.
That sounds like gunshots. He was, he had control over him when he got the takedown. It says that he only got one takedown, but I think he got more than that. But either way, he was just schooling on him through experience.
He controlled the range much better than I anticipated he would. I figured Dalby would be at his best on the outside of like the kicking range, but Means really seemed to navigate that well and just pace Dalby backwards. Like Dalby was never the guy coming forward in this fight.
No, those body kicks were devastating. Tim Means was landing those body kicks, and he outstruck him to get that decision. I don't know where Tim Means goes from here.
I think it's like 35, 36, got a ton of wins, got double-digit losses too. I don't think he's ranked, but he might be somewhere near the bottom of the rankings.
My man's done prison time too, I think. He's done jail time. I know that.
But he's one of those guys like similar to Matt Brown that's like been around, and right when you start to count them out, it's like they start to pile up wins again, and both of them won within the last 2 weeks. I mean, they fought in the past, so I wouldn't say have them fight each other, at least not yet, but give these guys both, someone worth fighting. Dalby, I think, was like 19-3 or something coming into that fight. So at the time, I think we all picked Dalby because it's like he's on the way up, Means is on the way down, but Means showed that he's got a lot left in the tank, and he's going to be a tough test for any guy that's on the rise.
So he lost to Matt Brown 6 years ago by submission.
Yep.
So that's kind of maybe
they fight again. Yeah, I didn't realize it had been that long. Like I thought it was maybe only like 3 or 4 years ago, but it's been so long, and if maybe they can't book a fight with anybody else, that would be a good fight. It was a good fight the first time.
Yeah, the welterweight division is a hard top 15 to break into. And with that said, Renato Moicano defeats Jai Herbert. One that I lost on, again, Moicano just schooled on him, did not want anything on the feet with Jai Herbert, who is clearly a great striker. But those Brits, man, they just can't wrestle. I'm sorry. But Nikki, what did you see on this one?
Like you said, Herbert looked good on the feet while they were standing, and Moicano was having trouble navigating the range and the speed and the reach. And then once he got the first takedown, he knew at that point, like, I have a huge advantage here, and I can get to this position again. And he, I think he ended it second round or maybe third round.
Round 2.
Yeah, but Moicano
at the end.
Yeah, like we had talked about, like he's been tested against basically all the best featherweights are his only losses. And then he lost to Fiziev, I think it was at 155. So it's like his only losses are like super high quality losses. And Herbert just didn't have the experience to deal with a guy like Moicano yet. But, if he works his sprawl, that fight could go very differently. So I'm excited to see Herbert's future, though, because he looked good in the early part of that fight. Moicano just, knew how to get the win. And he deserved it. He fought well, but he's going to have a lot harder tests than Herbert moving forward at 155.
Yeah. Now, in the top 15, I'm not sure if Armin Suzukian has a fight. Brad Riddell would be fun.
That would be a good one, because again, it would be a guy who's a very skilled grappler against a guy who's a very skilled striker. So Moicano would be in danger on the feet again and have to get the fight to the ground. But if he wins that, Riddell's coming off the win over Dober, so it'd be a good win for Moicano if he could get it. And they're both on similar schedules, having fought, I think, in the same month. So yeah, that could be down the line.
Yeah, and kind of a reverse of what happened in this fight. Kennedy Ncheku defeats Marquez, who was dominating the grappling aspect. He was backpacked him in the first round, and it looked like the second round was the same. He got taken down, but this African warrior just did not quit. Round 2, Marquez was clearly gassed. He goes for the punches. He starts landing. He keeps throwing. He keeps landing and gets the knockout. That was a pretty crazy comeback.
Sure was. Did he knock him out in the third round in that fight?
Yeah, in the second round, the same thing happened when he got taken down.
Yeah, and he's got a really good story too. So, like, seeing the kind of the preamble for that fight, I was like, oh man, it's so hard not to cheer for this guy. And then I was like, okay, he's losing. He's just going to get decisioned here. And he managed to pull off that win. So that was huge. Lit a fire under the audience too.
Yes. Next, moving on, my boy Rachmanov defeats Michel Prazeres. I'm telling you, I got my eye on this guy. He looks good. He is on a skyrocket to the top of his division. Get him a fight immediately for how he just, I'm telling you, his ground and pound's different. When he lands, people just stop moving, and his positional control against somebody who is such a good grappler as Michel Prazeres, I was impressed. He did everything that I wanted him to. He got my confidence back that has been squashed lately, that I called this guy who should have been higher up on this card, in my opinion. What did you see on this one?
What I saw was it looked like a fight between guys in two different weight classes. Yeah. Rachmanov is huge. So he really had no problem like controlling the striking aspect of the fight. And he is a very skilled grappler as well. So it took away Prazeres' really only hope. But yeah, what was that? Was it featherweight?
These are welterweights.
Welters, okay. So yeah, I mean, he's still big for welterweight though, but the size disparity between the two, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a really uphill battle for Prazeres. And it was. Maybe he moves down to 155 after that if he can. He's pretty thick at 170, but he's short. So
yeah, they have him at 5'6", but he might even be shorter than that.
Yeah, it may be time to move down if he can find a nutritionist and get to a more ideal body comparison size against his opponents, because he's not going to have, he'll fight some smaller guys, but everyone's going to be significantly bigger than him at welterweight, basically.
Yeah, there's no one that's 5'6" at welterweight anymore. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You
got monsters like Li Jingliang, Stephen Thompson, Vicente Luque.
And Neil Magny's up there. He's like 6'2", 6'3".
He's ranked 8. Sean Brady. By the way, his fight got rescheduled with Kevin Lee for August.
Okay, good. At least we still get to see that fight.
Yep. Notable win, Jeremiah Wells. Oh my God. Maybe they should fight each other. Shavkat Rakhmonov and Jeremiah Wells. Because this dude, he is a specimen and he moves like one. And he has lightning and doesn't seem like he gets tired for having that kind of physique. So good luck with that one.
Yeah, he looked great.
And I think we will stop our recap there.
Shout out to, what was it? Prochnio, who had that nasty liver kick, though.
Yes, that was the next one versus Villanueva, who, I mean, this was a kind of a sloppy fight for as long as it lasted.
A little bit, yeah.
Villanueva was doing good.
He was.
As an underdog. Julia Avila got a submission in the third round. Split decision versus Charlie Rosa and Justin James. Poor guy. If he did bet his money, bet his whole purse, which I really hope he didn't at this point, because now he's going home broke.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of confidence, and a lot of people shit on him for being like stupid for doing that, but hell, it's combat sports, and he did pretty well. And he hurt Rosa in like the first 90 seconds or so, and Rosa a little too diverse and controlled the range after he got hurt, and just never let the fight get back to Jane's range after that.
Yes. And Yancy Medeiros defeats Damir Hadzovic by decision. So now let's get to this crazy news week. And we've got some news for you. Okay, we spoke about the main event at UFC Vegas 30, where Gagne defeated Volkov. Well, just a couple days removed from that, we get news that I think surprised most people, and even the champion himself. Derek Lewis will fight Cyril Gane at UFC 265 in Houston, Texas on August 7th for the interim title. Now, there's a couple different ways to look at this. I was upset at first. I kind of still am. I kind of get it in a sense. But Nick, let me get your take on it. What the hell's going on here, and how do you feel about it? What is your emotion?
My emotion was that I feel bad for Ngannou. I think maybe the first or second episode I did with you, we were talking about it had been several months since the Stipe fight, and we had heard nothing about a booking for Ngannou. And we haven't really learned what transpired between his team and the UFC that led to this fight not happening. It seems like they wanted him to fight in August, and he wanted to fight later in the year for some reason, and that's a little murky still. I'm happy for Derek Lewis though. Like, he gets to fight for the belt in Houston. That building is gonna be absolutely wild, and he always has insane fights. And this is the kind of fight too where he could be losing until the very end, and then Gon maybe feels comfortable and takes one risk that he shouldn't, and it's over. So I'm not upset that these guys get to fight for an interim title because it's a good fight. And Ngannou's going to have to fight one of them sooner or later. So it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to see the champion that everybody wants to see, who we have, pretty much fingered as the guy who is going to be like that big explosive draw for the UFC. And maybe their foothold like into having that UFC Africa event as well. So I don't know if the UFC is trying to ice him. I don't know if he wanted more money. He is a little vocal on social media about like, how are the Paul brothers able to get this money and we're not. So maybe he realizes he has some leverage. The UFC doesn't want him to think he has any leverage. It's always tricky doing business because now we've seen it with him and John Jones back to back too. So like, who's the next guy that's going to be in that position?
Yeah, on one hand, it sucks for Ngannou because it makes it seem like they're stripping him in a sense, but they're not. From my understanding is that he was going to be vacationing until the end of June, and then he would be able to enter kind of a fight camp and be ready to fight in September. Well, I guess Dana White had penciled in a heavyweight title fight for August 7th, or maybe they were scrambling because their lowest pay-per-view ever was Amanda Nunes versus, I think it was Pena. It was one of those weird Amanda Nunes where they put her at the top of the bill. So this is your headliner now for UFC 265. It's not the real title fight between Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena. Who was it that she headlined? I'll tell you right now.
It wasn't her. Was it her last fight?
It was UFC 245.
So probably not Megan Anderson.
Maybe it was that one. Let me see. Megan Anderson. It was Pennington. That's right. TFC 224. They did it in Brazil, and I guess the numbers were just atrocious. So, the UFC is a business. I guess we're going to keep on saying it. We're going to keep on having these conversations. We're going to keep on being frustrated. But then on the other hand, for Ngannou, this is going to be a bigger fight. Whoever he fights next, they're going to bill it as, champion versus champion. And whoever wins out of Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane is going to get pay-per-view points whenever they do fight Ngannou. So that's good for them. We get a heavyweight scrap. It feels dirty because Ngannou just won a couple months ago and they're already going to bill. But I think it's to save this card
that makes sense.
Who your feature bout is Luque versus Chiesa, which is great. And that's fun. Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munoz.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny. That probably makes up your main card. So that's fun. But if you didn't have that Derek Lewis versus Gane at the top, it would,
I mean, yeah, if you're looking at, I think the number that I saw was 84,000, right? And if you're only doing 84,000 pay-per-view buys and your business model is predicated on breaking $250,000 at least, Because think about how they treated Mighty Mouse when he only got like 200,000 buys, right? So 84,000 is not even close.
No, it's
So,
not.
so if you look at a guy like Mighty Mouse, who was one of the best fighters in the world that they just couldn't seem to market, people couldn't get behind for whatever reason. And if that's the threshold is around like 250, 200, you have to do something about that card, because you can't trust that Amanda fighting Juliana Pena, who really doesn't have the kind of following that maybe some of the other females that Amanda has fought, like a Cyborg or a Holly Holm, or even Misha Tate to that extent.
Oh yeah.
You had to do something to ensure that you're gonna recoup some of your costs. So I understand it. You're right; it does feel a little dirty, but neither of the fighters are the guys that made it dirty. So I'm happy for both of them getting the opportunity. And there's this weird thing, like in MMA Twitter, where it's like, pay the fighters more, and then in the same breath, it's like, where can I watch a stream of this fight illegally? So it's like, you can't have it both ways. There's been a call to boycott this card because of the interim title fight. And it's like, I love Derek Lewis. Like, I love watching him fight. Gon's a huge prospect who just had a great performance against a very difficult opponent. This is not a bad fight. And like labeling it this dirty interim title, that doesn't support the fighters that you claim to want to support.
I think what makes it worse is that Dana knew the circumstance and had agreed to September.
Mm.
And
Be mad at Dana. That's fine.
Oh yeah, well that's kind of his job, is to piss us off and do what's best for the company. Yeah. But we have some Twitter beef by some of the players involved, and let's go read some Twitter beef, some of which went down on Instagram. Francis Ngannou says on Twitter, June 28th, I remember my interim title fight against Jairzinho, ... Oh, wait. So like you said, how long did this man wait for a title shot? That kind of makes it feel dirty as well. Eric Nixick, who is his trainer, on June 28th. If you only knew half the story, but you see how they'll do you? Question mark. Now, Ngannou's agent, Markel Martin, says on Instagram, this comes as a complete shock to make an interim title so soon. If you look at the history of this division, it comes as a surprise. We hope to get clarity and figure out something soon. Marco Martin also, I'll leave judgment to the fans. They're smart. My respect to Gon and Lewis. We will handle things with respect as always. And then Dana White chimed in. And that's always fun to see him go off the rails at people.
He's one of the few guys that's in like a crazy high-ranking power position in a company, and he like comes down into the muck with the civilians and is just like, fuck you, buddy.
Yeah. Dana White says, this dude is so full of shit. He knows exactly what's going on and isn't shocked at all, because we told him several times this was coming. His management is incompetent, and hopefully Francis starts looking at new people to help his career. I'll continue on. LOL, complete shock with your decision after we said September was good for us. This is Markel Martin. Complete shock that you guys made threats after less than 3 months after you were all aware. Complete shock after you knew Francis needed more time. That is correct. I know you're passionate, but you are trying to discredit my integrity when I've been nothing but respectful to you, Hunter, and your entire staff. Speaks more about you than it does about me. I'm not even mad. I'm actually impressed that I've gotten your attention. Incompetent management? Question mark. I think we've done a damn good job. I think you really don't like the fact that Francis is being represented by only not me, but an entire agency, one of which you can't control. Hence why you have people trying to rep him all the time to your benefit. Laughing face. I'll tell you what, let's disclose everything for people to see. Emails, calls, texts, everything. Deal? Because I'm ready to get blackballed by the UFC. I'm not defined by it, you or anyone else for that matter. How's that sound? Sincerely, your old employee, Markel Martin. And then Francis Ngannou replies to that, Markel 100. So, hopefully what's done is done. Uh, if these guys keep poking the Dana bear, Dana don't give a shit. He'll put Francis on the sidelines. I mean, it's that simple.
He will. Dana's a guy who, who values the brand over everything, right? So like you said, he'll sit Francis, but what I don't want to see is this go into litigation hell, because like Francis is already 35, right? So say this goes to court and it's like we agreed on a fight in September. They went ahead and pushed the fight to August and got Francis out of the fight, and then they're not holding up their contractual side or their obligatory side of the contract. So we're going to take you to court to get Francis out of his contract, because what his agent is saying is like, I don't mind being blackballed by the UFC, but like that means your client is also going to receive the same treatment. And when you're 35 and you're like the linear belt holder, you don't want to be on the sidelines for 2 years. And if you go to court, it's probably going to take at least a year before that gets resolved. If he wanted to say leave the UFC and get out of his contract and go do something else, like he could make a ton of money in boxing if he just like wanted to fight like Anthony Joshua once, or Deontay Wilder or something like that, Tyson Fury. So if he wants to protect his best interests, like they're gonna have to
Logan Paul,
right? That would be great for everybody. But yeah, it's in their best interest to sort of like play nice with the UFC to a degree, which says a lot about how the UFC writes their contracts, which I think is why we've seen a lot of fighters standing up a lot more in the last 6 months.
Yeah, hopefully cooler heads will prevail. They'll kiss and make up or whatever, because it's not good for Dana to be calling out his management team like that. I mean, it's not good all the way around. I'm trying to think of who has been in trouble because of their representation. Well, I guess the best example that we can think of right now is Diego Sanchez and Josh Fabia, because that guy ruined everything for the end of his career. So
yeah, now he's in what, bare knuckle fighting championship?
He's in talks with them. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's signed or not, but that's going to be fun watching Diego Sanchez get busted up like that against those animals.
Yeah.
All right. So Cyril Gahn is a near 3-1 favorite over Derek Lewis right now.
I mean, it makes sense. 3-1 seems like maybe a little heavy because the odds just came out and Gahn just won a unanimous decision over a bigger guy. I mean, like, it makes sense that he's the favorite. But if you're planning on betting on Derek Lewis, like, now's probably the time, because the closer that fight gets, probably the closer the odds will get.
Yeah, I think money will probably come in on him, but it'll be important to look at fight day to see what happens there. So here's the other kind of wonky news, and we're just going to go on a Dana White UFC protecting its own brand. And right now, Sean O'Malley is a part of their brand because Louis Smoke is out. Sean O'Malley will now fight Chris Moutinho at UFC 264 next weekend. The controversy is there's plenty of other guys that said they were ready to go. Tim Elliott,
Ricky Simon.
I mean, there was probably everyone's trying to fight Sean O'Malley. It's not like they had a shortage of people. He probably gets called out by a UFC fighter every week on Twitter. Kevin Holland saying that he would come down to 175 to fight. But that's just Kevin Holland being Kevin Holland. I don't know. What do you make of this kerfuffle?
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, O'Malley's last fight was when he like broke his ankle or had the weird foot injury against Chito Vera, right? So your star was probably winning the first round against Chito, who's a slow starter. But he went out like not looking great, and then he still just kept running his mouth out.
Just real quick, he fought Thomas Almeida after that.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, he fought Marlon Vera in August 15th, 2020. He took some time off and fought Thomas Almeida at the end of March. and won a third round KO.
That's right. That's right.
He seems like from Marlon Vera, Thomas Almeida, now he's going down in competition again. That's not good for him.
It's not good for his career in the long term. I mean, they're lining it up so that like maybe he gets a highlight reel knockout, stays healthy, and then can call out somebody on the pay-per-view, and maybe he gets Cody Garbrandt or maybe like a Sunsao or somebody else like in the typical bantamweight like food chain that we've seen for the last couple of years. But yeah, it was a spotlight where he could have had a number of opponents that are good opponents. And like you said, like 135 is stacked. It's a really good division right now. Maybe on short notice, they didn't want to give him somebody that he didn't have time to prepare for just in case, because a loss there he's in the featured bout, right?
That's actually the opener for the
opener. Okay. So he has to set the tone for the card. Yeah, I don't know. It just, even if you're going to give him a guy that's ranked below him, like, why are you going to go out and sign a guy who's never fought in the UFC before to take this fight on short notice? Like, it
just sign the guy, and there's plenty of people. It's not like, oh, we can't find anyone. We're going to have to sign someone for this bout because there's no one that'll fight Sean O'Malley.
You're going to see the narrative that he's being protected for, at least after this fight, no matter what happens in this fight. So I would say most people are probably going to cheer for him to lose because of the circumstances. So I don't know. It just doesn't do him any favors. It doesn't get him ready for a high level guy next either. So I don't know what the UFC's doing. Maybe they just want like a nice knockout to start the card and some shit talking.
So he lost 2 in a row in 2019 and then came back to win one in 2020 and then won one. He got finished by elbows and he got knocked out in the beginning. So he's 2-2 in his last 4. Let's see what happens, I guess. His competition doesn't seem to be that great as well.
You're talking about the opponent?
Chris Moutinho. I guess a Regiment Training Center. I heard somebody that on Twitter that I respect say that their coach is really good. Not Jorgen De Castro's there. He just signed with European promotion. It doesn't really show with the fighters that they have there, but I guess the coach is pretty good. So we'll see what happens there. We'll break that all down next week.
It's a big opportunity for Moutinho.
Yes.
So, I mean, might as well try and go out there and make a show out of it. And if he gets knocked out, it's like, well, you were supposed to get knocked out. And if he wins, maybe a $50,000 bonus and a fan base that he never had access to before.
Yeah.
Go get it.
And hopefully the UFC will give him another fight if he loses, because that's going to suck. Like, they pulled him from the pond when he was too small of a fish. And, sometimes it's hard to get back.
Yeah. Development is one of the UFC's like biggest strengths. I mean, it's like the whole model of the Ultimate Fighter is we're going to find out who's ready now. We're going to sign contracts for a lot of these guys that maybe weren't ready, but got a chance to develop on the show, give them access to the training center and the facilities and the coaches to improve their game, the nutritionists that work for the UFC. So like, there's a huge investment in their own like farm system, basically.
Very true. Moving on. Paul Craig will now fight Alexander Gustafsson at a UFC event on September 24th. This appears to be UFC 193. Roundtree versus Modestas Bukauskas and Nathaniel Ward versus Jonathan Martinez are the only ones rumored for this card so far. September 4th. Venue is to be determined. We've got Sweden versus Scotland. Alexander Gustafsson coming back after his heavyweight stint, which didn't go good. And I think he's retired twice now. So no, he only went up to fight Fabricio Verdum and lost. Now he's back. That was about a year ago. So what do you make of this?
I don't know where his mind is at. It seems like, at least career trajectory wise, after he lost to Jones in the close fight the first time, there was this huge contingent of the fan base that was like, Gustafson beat John Jones, right? And that like carried his career for a long time. And then he ended up, I think, fighting Cormier for the belt and lost as well. And he lost to Anthony Smith, I think was his last 205 fight before moving up. And it's just the way that he lost to Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith just like, the striking was not dominated by Gustafson. And when they got into grappling, Smith took him down. I think he choked him. Could be mistaken, but I think he choked him out.
You're right. You're
right. So going against
in Sweden, Sweden.
Yeah, they were like giving him the stage, like, this is a comeback fight for you against another guy who recently fought for the belt against Jones. So I don't know, it just didn't look good. And then I think he got subbed by Verdum as well. So now you're throwing him in against Craig, who is a submission specialist as well. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's a great matchup for him coming back. But if he wants back in, like, he's got to take on somebody that's got some stock at 205, or else, like, what's he doing it for? So,
well, look who he has fought. We'll start, and these are he's 2-5 in his last 7 fights. But look who he's fought: Anthony Johnson, Daniel Cormier, Jean Blachowicz, who he beat, Glover Teixeira, who he beat, John Jones, Anthony Smith, Fabricio Verdum. All of those are legends and Hall of Famers for sure.
Yeah, it's like his quality of loss is not bad, right? But there just seems to be something, like, it seems like his confidence is maybe gone.
Yeah.
Because there was that fan base that was like, no, you beat John Jones. So maybe he was also like believing it, like, yeah, I beat John Jones, I'm the best guy in the world. And he was fighting like that for a while. And then a couple of losses, and it's like, all right, well, why am I doing this? I need to retire. I need to get out of 205 and test my like speed and power at heavyweight. And that didn't go well. So it's like he's clearly searching for something. And for Gustafson's sake, I hope he found it, because he was a great fighter to watch when he was on top of his game. And I don't think it does Paul Craig any favors to go out there and beat a washed up Gus either. So I want to see Gus come back and be the guy that we remember him, which is always harder later in a guy's career. But I want to see him test Paul Craig to make the best come out of Paul Craig. And if he beats Gustafson by submission and Gus is fighting how we've seen him in the past, then like it's a much better win than submitting a guy who's already been submitted twice in a row and retired.
Correct. Also, maybe it's important to note, a lot of people thought he beat John Jones, but his fight with Daniel Cormier was one of the best fights, and it was a split decision. I think I went back and watched it, and you could have scored it for Gus, but it was really close.
It was.
Anthony Johnson hit him so hard that I'm surprised he came back. Another popular topic of this week, and you can't get it off your timeline if you are on any kind of MMA social media. Joe Schilling knocks out this drunk dude at the bar, which I'll say is in contrast to another social media scuffle that happened over the weekend. Michael Bisping being in New Orleans, saying that he got hit by a dude and just laughed at him. And so if you haven't seen the video, it just starts by showing this drunk guy dancing. He's kind of like acting like he's cool. He's got his girlfriend there. Busboy walks up and he's making like a face at him, but Joe Schilling's walking behind him, has no idea. He steps in front of Joe Schilling. He might have like bumped shoulders or whatever, and then said something to Joe Schilling, and he looks like he was just gonna like do a flinch at him, like he was tough, but Joe Schilling goes into reaction mode with a quick 1-2, and dude is sleeping on the floor. So my question to you is, Should Joe Schilling conduct himself better than he is doing?
I mean, like, you would hope that guys that are pro fighters don't beat up dumbass civilians like in street settings, but at the same time, like, Joe Schilling is like a fighter's fighter, right? So
Yeah.
if you're the little guy in that situation, Joe came up behind him. He kind of put his hand on his shoulder, like, excuse me, like, I need to get by you. He did the right thing, was polite, and he walked by and had his back to the guy. And then little dude said something to him that got his attention. So he turned around and the guy flinched on him. And it's like, you don't know if this guy is actually going to attack you or not. So at that point, like, I think Joe is within his rights to self-defense because he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know if the guy's got a knife or if he's going to swing on him or whatever. So he just gave him a little, right, left, and the guy was out. It just looks really bad when the bigger guy who's a pro fighter KOs a civilian. The optics aren't great, but I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, Joe Schilling is this cage fighting animal who shouldn't be allowed in the public because this happened.
No, he's cool. He's been on Rogan before, and he's a cool dude, but he's also like he hurts people. I think he enjoys it. He's not a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
No.
He's going out there to hurt people and enjoy it, his work. So that's a popular theme going on right now. On Joe Schilling's side too, you don't know who that guy is. He could be a little Matt Hughes or whatever. You don't know who he. But I think it just happened so fast that his instincts kicked in.
Yeah.
And if you go to Nuts and Bolts MMA, you will be able to see that video.
Schilling was not the instigator in that situation. So
No.
It's hard to place the blame on him. It's just, yeah, it looks bad seeing the little dude get like smashed so badly so quickly, but don't just like flinch on random dudes in public for no reason.
Nope. And keeping with our theme of UFC being trash, I'm just kidding. I'm appreciative of the UFC and all they do. We have Jake Paul donating $5,000 to Sarah Alpar because she was forced to start a GoFundMe ahead of her Blanchfield fight. But her GoFundMe ended up taking off because someone from Triller, whose name is Lisa Ferguson, gave her $25,000. So she's got her fight camp paid for. I wonder if this is going to be a theme that we see more. I think the Paul brothers have it out to stick it to the UFC for, I think, maybe a lot of the stuff that we just mentioned. And maybe if the UFC is not careful, Triller might be able to start plucking some of their major talent, and that could be a problem for them.
I think, I don't want to like put the cart in front of the horse, but if I'm Jake Paul and Logan Paul, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, they understand how to market themselves and their fight business, and they're not pros, right? So they're planting the seeds in the UFC fighters' heads. Like, look, we can start our own promotion and get you guys paid way better and showcase you as individuals and not like keep you confined in this particular like company box. I think he's doing it 100% intentionally. And I think if you had to look at the UFC and be like, what is the number one obstacle the UFC is facing over the next like year to 5 years, I think fighter pay is right at the top of that. So it's a hot button issue for everybody involved, and I think Jake and Logan are very smart in how they've approached kind of their branding. And anytime they get to ruffle Dana's feathers, it's a win for them. So smart move on their part.
Yeah, and they are taking it pretty serious. That they fly people out to Costa Rica. I think that's where they live, and all they do is train, make videos, and fight people.
I don't know where the money comes from, but it seems to be there. And I think I heard Rashad Evans wants to fight Logan now. And Rashad's been retired for a while, but like he sees the paycheck.
Right. So Sarah Alpar,
Mhm.
she won her Contender Series fight in 2019. She lost to Jessica Rose Clark by knees and punches last year, September. So now she's fighting Erin Blanchfield. She's once she didn't have any money for her training camp, so she started to GoFundMe, and I wonder if every struggling fighter is going to make a GoFundMe for their training camp now. It could be getting interesting.
It could be. I mean, considering that like the conventional like sponsorship model that we kind of like came into the fight game with watching, where it's like these guys' trunks look like NASCAR out there. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we're used to, and that's how a lot of these guys funded their camp, and they made more money on sponsorships than they did on their fight paycheck. So to take that away from them and just be like, no, you have to wear the Venom uniform or the Reebok uniform, and it's all like brand over identity. I think for me as a fan, like what I loved about the UFC is that there's so many different personalities. Like no matter what kind of fighter you like, there's someone out there for you. If you like Demetrius Johnson who plays Xbox and is just like a chill dad, and you know, if you like a guy like Joe Schilling who's just like a badass, or if you like Donald Cerrone who rides ATVs and does all that stuff, or
Yeah.
Ngannou who worked his way up, there's so many different kinds of stories there, and stripping the personality out of the fighter isn't good for the business. And I think it's not a coincidence that that Reebok deal has led us here where fighter pay is all of a sudden the hot button issue.
Yeah. I wish they would go back to letting fighters have their own sponsors on their shorts. You know, Joe Schilling would be sponsored by Marlboro. The
Yeah.
Cowboy would be sponsored by Bud Light, even though Modelo would be on the mat. You know, it's kind of hypocritical that the UFC could put all these logos on a mat that the fighters are fighting on, but the fighters can't have their own sponsor logos.
Yeah, UFC's watching out for their own pockets.
That is the theme of this show. This has been episode 22. Nick, can you tell people where they could find you on social media if you want? And
Yeah,
you
you
have
can find
any?
me on Twitter, Nick Shiesty. Some variation of that, probably across all the platforms. Look me up. I'm not really posting that much, but I interact with a lot of MMA accounts on there now.
I am Ashwan MMA on Twitter. That's where you can find my personal. I'll give a shout out to Jake Paul right now for helping out the UFC fighters and sticking it to the UFC a little bit. Do you have any shout outs this week?
Let's shout out Rob and Adam who weren't able to join us today, and international fight team group chat where I get to see a lot of guys from the UK support their guys and see some interesting ideas on how fights should be scored.
Cool. And on that note, we are out. Everyone else, step your game up.